I think my oldest daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, was quoted as saying she had never seen an episode of Happy Days. I think she's seen snippets and bits, but I'm not sure she's ever bothered to sit down and watch an entire episode. That may be the case for most of my kids. I'm Ron Howard, and this is my life in pictures. Me and my friend Henry, we just clicked as acting partners first and foremost. I had a lot of respect for Henry because he's some years older than I am and was formally educated, Yale drama, a highly intellectual man, viewed acting in a much more artful way, although he was also a great improvisational actor.
I'm gonna forget it this time, but no more lying. I'll do all the lying.
Very funny. I came from Hollywood, and that wasn't Henry's upbringing. And even with Happy Days, even with the broad comedy that we were going for, he was looking for those other values at all times and inventing in a way that was pretty dazzling. And we became great acting partners and then great friends. And he was really like, and is kind of like a big brother to me. And we always had that. Donnie Most, Anson Williams, Henry Winkler, and I have a sort of an ongoing text thread. So there's just a kind of a running dialogue updating what's going on. Anson just had a very successful play. Donnie's got a movie coming out. Oh, Henry's on the road somewhere. That's been one of the, really great gifts of my adult life is our friendship. At the point that I did this show, I don't think I had ever seen myself on TV, because usually my bedtime was before the shows went on. I began to be allowed to stay up and watch the Andy Griffith Show, which I think came on at 8:30 or something like that. But it wasn't until much later that I began to understand the impact the show was having audiences. I mean, I learned cursive writing in order to do autographs when I was 6 years old.
Hi, Pa.
Oh, hi, son.
Andy was a great guy. People ask if he was a father figure to me, but my father was around a lot, and Andy had a lot of respect for them. They became friends. And I didn't know this at the time, but later, when I was doing a reunion special with Andy, he told me that very early, in like the very first episode that we were doing of the show, that my dad, who was not he was a professional, but, he was just a workaday actor, had the confidence, the nerve, the belief that it was the right thing to actually, in a very gentle way, go up to Andy and say, now, I see how they're writing Opie in the traditional contemporary sitcom way where the kid is a smartass and, in some ways seems to be sharper than the dad. And I know that works, and Ronnie can do those jokes, and sure. But what if they had a different relationship? What if Andy respected his father? And Andy said that he thought about that, and he went to the writers and he said, let's make Andy Opie be Ronnie Rance, and let's look at that. And that began to reshape the tone of the show and our relationship on the show. People Magazine was the only outlet that we allowed to cover our wedding. They covered our small, very modest wedding in Burbank, California, and it was important to Cheryl's dad that he pay for it. So therefore, it was important to Cheryl to not let it get out of hand. And we sent out invitations to 300 people, and Cheryl kept saying, that's huge. And my mom kept saying, oh, they won't all show up. They won't all show up. And that church was chock-a-block full. It was, everybody from the Andy Griffith Show, everybody from Happy Days, and so many other friends, Cheryl's friends as well. And it was a great day. We had no reception there. My mom and dad had a small kind of champagne punch reception back at their house. And so the whole thing was super modest, but you know what? By God, it worked. I think Cheryl might have had a little runaway bride anxiety. And I don't think it ever went quite that far, but I think she was more aware that she was kind of entering a world that she didn't really know anything about, show business, these people. And for her, we knew we loved each other. We just had that from immediately. It was just one of those one of those things. But I think for her, she recognized there was a responsibility and a sort of a transformation that was going to be required of her. I felt none of that, and she didn't talk about that at the time. Later, we did talk about it, but I just knew, I wanted to be with Cheryl and that we'd be great together. If you would have asked me then, will you celebrate your 50th wedding anniversary? I would have said, yeah, if we live that long, absolutely. I was just so sure. Wow. This was one of life's great experiences, making the movie Apollo 13. It was my first movie based on real events. I'd made some movies that were fiction, but in the world of firefighting and journalism, where I tried to research them and make them as authentic as I could. But this was really about understanding the facts and condensing them in a dramatic way and sharing them with as much authenticity as possible. And I had a blast. We shot weightless in a KC-135, which is this NASA plane that does these parabolas, which is kind of like a roller coaster. Like it climbs to the top, and then on the dive down, you're basically free falling. But because you're free falling, within the aircraft, there's no wind or anything, and you're weightless. That's how we filmed a lot of the scenes in the movie. No one had ever done that before. It was a hell of an experience. So for me, it was a massive turning point, and I just had a blast. I mean, it's just one of the great experiences I've ever had on a film set.
Hello, Houston. This is Odyssey. It's good to see you again.
Brian Grazer, who has a great commercial eye, was really a believer, pushing hard for the movie, and we just threw ourselves into it wholeheartedly. It was a blast, a great creative experience.
Hey, it's me, it's Ron Howard. How cool is that? Huh?
Now, I get kind of excited on a set, and I don't always finish my sentences completely. I'm pretty energized, and I talk with my hands. So Tom does this. I don't think it's a very accurate impression, but it's me saying, "All right, now, okay, that's good. All right, that's good. But now, the next time you try it, how about if you were upside down? What if we just flipped it?" And so this is his impression of me. He goes a little broader than that. I kind of did a heightened version of me. He goes even crazier. But now sometimes I find that when I'm even directing Tom, I wind up doing his version of me directing him instead of just being me. So I don't know what that's all about. I wish I had a good Tom impression. It's just, so let me get this straight. Gets this imperious kind of look. And then he's, fine, whatever you want. Roll it. Here we go. He's great to direct. My family, the greatest gift to me. Not to be too corny about it, but it's true. The youngest in the family, Reed, Bryce, a dissatisfied teen. Why do we have to take a picture? Tired Jocelyn, one of our fraternal twins. Jocelyn and Paige are our twin sisters. Paige seems to be loving life at that moment, as she does. And there's Cheryl and I, and there we are at Niagara Falls. I think Cheryl and I were beaming because that was a great trip. To see your children parent is a real trip, and fascinating to see the things they choose to do differently, fascinating to see them fall into the same patterns that they were raised with. All very interesting. Of course, that old standard trope, that cliche that, it's great because you get to love and play with the grandkids and you get to send them home. I think my wife feels that, she's not running point. She cares, she's hands-on, she's a great, they call her Alma. So she's wonderfully committed Alma. But, she's I think grateful that she's not fully in charge. But I also think for her, it's another dimension of just human satisfaction. There's something about her kids having kids. The families are great. The spouses are wonderful. We're so lucky. Sure, ups and downs. Somebody's always up. Somebody's always down. Somebody's sick. Somebody's got a problem. But also people are having, moments of joy and achievement too. And so it's lively. This was during the making of The Music Man. And I used to go to this place and try to learn to sing. Mrs. Weber was my vocal coach for the movie The Music Man. I never really could sing, but I think they thought it was kind of cute that I was a little off key. But they tried to clean it up as best they could. We were in Mrs. Weber's studio here, and this was her piano. I didn't play the piano, but I think the photographer thought it would be pretty nice if I sat down. Clint was there about 2.5 years old at that point, and that's my mom and dad. They were incredibly supportive. My mom didn't love the publicity stuff, even though she had been an actress, didn't really pursue it, then returned to it as a character actress. But just she was always a little anxious, the process of getting the makeup and hair and trying to get in there. Dad was an actor, and you could tell he's zoned right in there. But Clint clearly didn't want to be there. So he's kind of a prop in this one.
Oh, the Wells Fargo wagon, it's coming now. I don't know.
I had so much fun on The Music Man because, my performance stuff was a little stressful to me because I really didn't naturally feel like I was doing well with the singing and dancing, which was a total disaster. I had one little time step I was supposed to do, and finally they just said, just turn around in a circle and, we'll cut you at your knees and we'll be all right. So I knew that wasn't my best, but I sure could lisp.
Thanks, Professor.
I had that nailed. This is behind the scenes at the movie Eden, which is my latest film. Man, it was hot. We were shooting not in the Galapagos, although the film was set in the Galapagos, and we did shoot some in the Galapagos. But the scenes with the actors were done in Queensland, Australia, and we had no interiors. It was all just out there, and it was hitting 100 degrees many, many days. We had snake wranglers and spider wranglers who were literally scouring our sets constantly, looking for these creatures and finding them, which was a little bit unnerving. But it was a character-focused piece. It's a thriller. It's sexy. It's scary. It's violent. It's dark. It's all of those other things. But underneath it all is this humanity because it's characters being tested to the max, testing themselves to the max, their relationships providing either strength or undermining and creating struggle and conflict. Daniel Bruhl, who is half German and speaks with a German accent, was incredibly helpful working with Sydney Sweeney. We had dialect coaches, but it was a huge advantage for Sydney, who plays Daniel's wife. The two of them, made a great pair. I remember Daniel saying to me at one point when he first met Sydney in person, he said, and he began to see her in character, the hair and the clothing from the period. And he said, she's very American. I wasn't sure she was going to be able to embody this young German woman from 1930. And he said, she's got it. She's got the European flavor. The accent is good. And he was, incredibly helpful, besides just being a talented guy and a friend, because we had worked together on the movie Rush, where he played Niki Lauda and did such a fantastic job. So this was a really challenging movie, a real labor of love, done on a low budget. Everybody there, cutting their fees drastically, just to do something interesting and to support me in this dream that I'd long had of telling this story that I felt, even though it happened 90 plus years ago, was in many ways prescient, very and very reflective of contemporary life and that yearning that we have to sometimes just get away from it and to acknowledge what that really means and then recognize that we drag our humanity with all of its flaws and along with the strengths with us wherever we go. So I thought it was a great creative opportunity, and the entire cast really brought it to life in a way that just meant a hell of a lot to me.